It's recording on Zoom for me.
All right, cool. I see. It says at the top it's recording.
Yeah. And then
Like I'm at an awkward angle because I have my iPad.
No, I'm using my iPhone. Same. Okay, so should we just start with question 1? Why were children sent to schools during colonial times?
yeah, sure.
Does anyone want to start us off?
Yeah, so what I found is it talked about local school boards. The founding fathers were afraid of a strong federal government, and so they wanted it to be, that was the first thing I noted during colonial times, is that they wanted it to be a local thing. So it was a local thing, not a federal thing. So I have that written down. And then I had the 4 R's, the reading, writing, arithmetic, and religion, but that the main purpose was religion.
Yeah, also it was kids were really needed back in those times, just like they were more needed in the family to help with so many different things, such as like whatever area they were in the colonies, like whether it was crops or harvesting or whatever.
Yeah, and so with that, it was like only privately reserved for upper and middle caste and mostly white males because they needed all the others to do the work.
Yeah.
And then there was also dame schools where like girls learned cooking and sewing and other womanly tasks. So
yeah,
and like how they said they wanted to be a local thing so they can kind of gain control over it and like watch over it. That's what I have, and the 4 R's.
Yeah.
Anything else, or should we?
You want to move on to the second one?
I don't have anything more to say really about the first one.
All right. So what led to the formation of district schooling?
The disconnect with the system of education is like the sentence.
That's exactly what I wrote.
I had the kind of the full little thing of it, like the settlers moved further away from town for farmland, and to not have it be like a moving school where one teacher hopped from like place to place. They split it into districts and had one school with the one thing. So that's why I had
it. Well, that also helped them eventually get funding, like, and kind of decide where it came from.
Yeah, that was another thing that they talked about. Good with that. Anything else to add? All right, so the first part of the third one, explain the development of elementary schools.
Wait, was that the third or fourth? For third, I had to explain the growth of middle schools and junior highs.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I skipped.
Okay, was that one? Okay, no, you're good. I didn't know if I had them in order.
Okay, so the growth of middle schools and junior high. So this one. All right. Is everybody okay? I'm hearing some major squeaking.
My dad just went out the door. My house is major creak, so just ignore him.
All right.
Yeah, my chair is doing that too, so.
Yeah, I got an old ass house, so oops.
So it talks about how junior high school was made to resolve the fact that they weren't sure where to stop teaching basic skills and start teaching actual like content. And so they started the junior high around 1909, 1910, and then by 1926 there was more than 800 schools that had the 3 organization. of the 6th grade, 3rd, middle school, all of that.
Yeah, and back then it was way more focused on like jobs and getting them into a field more than like just like, oh, getting the basics of education, you know. It was way more focused on
They did it
jobs.
mostly off of like skills. Like it wasn't like, oh, you aspire to be this. It's like, you know, you're good at this. You're gonna go that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was the junior high and middle school. And then it was the 1960s that they really began middle school, where it was 6th, 7th, and 8th, rather than junior high, that was 7, 8, and 9. So this one, they wanted them to feel free to grow at their own rates, and where the attention was focused on the needs of the age group rather than the mimicking of a high school for academic. So,
And it was prepping students for high school, like middle and prepping. It was about a lot about that.
yeah,
I
so
feel like
there's, like the junior high where they were like prepping for high school, and then there was the middle school that started in the 60s. That was kind of separate. That was different, right?
good on that.
Yeah, they had some other stuff of like the 1980s, but it was just like increasing education, not too much of like changing the dynamics. So I think that's good.
Okay, so 4 was explain the development of elementary schools, talk about the education of students of color. Well, we'll just do the first part first. Explain development of elementary schools.
Okay, something I wrote down was before the Civil War, there was experiments with the idea of kindergarten, but that was very first permanently implemented in 1873 in St. Louis. And so that was when they grabbed kindergarten from Germany. So I had that written down.
I just had that basically that there was a lot more elementary schools put in place, like so many more coming into play. There wasn't many at the beginning, but they started building a lot more elementary schools for more people to get educated.
That's what I have in in between Civil War and World War One, like a lot more. It increased by like 56% or something, and 5 to 18 range. So that's kindergarten.
Yeah.
This
And then
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Okay, I was if you have more to add, go ahead. I was just gonna say if we wanted to talk about the students of color.
Oh, I just have 2 more. I had the Pestalozzi that they adopted from Swedish schools, was about teaching moral development, and so that was something that was added in. And then Montessori, which was learning through senses, and so they started adding in physical activities and manual training within elementary school. So I just had those 3 names written down because they seemed important. So I had those 3 developments. So other than that, I'm good.
Okay, well, for students of color, they're just like less likely to have access to college and courses before going into college. And I lost my place. Someone else go, sorry.
So do we want to start with African Americans first and talk about them first?
Yeah.
All right, so I just kind of wrote down some of the important dates that I pulled out. So in 1717, Reverend Cotton Mather started a school for slaves, and it was basically to like, if I teach them religion, they'll become more docile and more controllable, which is not a good reason, and they weren't teaching anything that was like of importance. It was just
it wasn't to
religion.
better them, to better the white man.
Yeah. And then I had the 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson enforced the separate is not equal.
Okay, I could be.
I talked about sorry. The 1833, they started bringing in African American girls. Prudence Randolph. I thought that was kind of stood out to me. I don't know.
I was
Which one
gonna
was
say.
that one?
1833. At the end of page 323.
All right, I see it. Sorry.
You're good. And it like talks about how it was kind of protested against, and people burn it down and stuff.
Mhm.
I thought that was kind of cool, interesting. So then it talks about the 1930s, and in 10 southern states, African American children counted for 34% of the school population, but only received 3% of the funds available. So it was very underfunded and very not okay. So, and then it wasn't until 1953 for the Brown versus Board of the Education of Topeka, where they had the fight that equality was not equal, or separate was not equal.
Yeah.
So, and then it talks about the desegregation. Do we want to go into all of the desegregation and stuff?
Should we? It's up to you.
I mean, I think it's just important to talk about like how absolutely insane it was, and the rioting, and how even though the law said it was okay, how hard it was for people to even, like, people were petrified to even go. If you watch Ruby Bridges, she had like 20 officers on this 6-year-old girl because people were trying to hurt her when she was trying to go to a school. And even when they're even in the white schools, they put Black boys and girls in one like classroom, and they put all the other whites in the other classroom and wouldn't let them be taught by the same teachers.
Separate like water fountains, separate bathrooms.
Even though they weren't supposed to, they did, especially in the southern states. So,
Done about it.
but I think that about covers it for African Americans.
Yeah.
Are we ready for American Indians?
So, well, the beginning of their like formalized like government funded education was when the government would like force the children to go into boarding schools to civilize them and like,
Yeah.
I don't know, try and make them fit in with white people more.
Yeah.
Yeah, culture in schools was not embraced. If anything, it was more just about whitewashing.
Yeah.
Yeah, culture was not embraced in schools. It was a matter of fact, like completely the opposite of teaching so-and-so American culture rather than like accepting everybody's culture.
Yeah, it was about abolishing Native American culture and implementing European culture within their tribe, like trying to abolish that. And it wasn't until 1924 when they actually became like American citizens, but they still didn't have control over their own education. With the Bureau of Indian Affairs directed the education of American Indians until the 1970s. So, and then it was between 1972 and 1975 that Congress did the 3 bills that affected American education and self-discrimination that encouraged the establishment of community-run schools where they could get grants and other things like that. And so they could run their schools and not have it be federally affected and kind of whitewashed.
Sorry, can you guys hear my dog? Or is that bothering you guys?
No.
Emily cut out. Should we keep going or?
Oh, did her connection get lost or something?
Yeah, her connection might have gotten lost.
Okay, we can wait for a sec because I need to get my dog.
There she is.
Okay.
Did you lose connection?
Let's see back.
Emily, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. I just didn't want to keep going without.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
All right.
Okay, are we all good?
Yeah, okay. Hispanic Americans. Fudge. Okay.
So a lot of Hispanic Americans, their language is not really taught enough in school, so they'll lose the connection with
The
their
culture.
own,
The culture.
yeah, with their own language.
Yeah, and it talked about how Hispanic children tend to receive lower scores than white children, especially with English language intelligence quotes, which were only written in a language for English people to understand and not for anybody that is Spanish speaking or Hispanic to understand. And so they were considered intellectually inferior than their white counterparts, and that was some. So
The language barrier in schools not kind of making it easy for all. Test scores with Hispanics were worse due to the language barrier.
Yeah, and even if you do like, even if you're considered kind of like fluent, it's not like the same wording, and sometimes it can be tricky just because even translated, you can go to Google Translate and it's not the same wording or anything. Different words mean different things.
yeah, and then another thing I think is important to look at is the Plyer versus Doe case in 1982, where the Supreme Court struck down a Texas statute that denied free education for children of illegal immigrants because it violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. So it guaranteed education for children of undocumented citizens, or not, undocumented people. So I think that one was an important one to mention. All right. And it says it's Hispanic American youth represents the fastest growing segment of the U.S. population, and about 1 in 5 children in the public school system is Hispanic. And yeah, I believe it. I was in the classroom I was observing how we had like 15 students, and about 10 of them were Spanish speaking, so Hispanic Americans. So. Don't dispute it. Do you guys have anything to add for that? Do we want to move on to Asian Americans?
Yeah, I'm good at that.
Summer, are you good?
Yeah.
Emily?
Yep, I'm good.
All right. Okay, so Asian Americans. Let's see. Doo-doo-doo. So it talks about school segregation of Chinese Americans in California lasted until 1946, which was it was I find that crazy. And then it also talks about how it during World War II, due to like the Japanese American camps and everything like that, how they were forced to segregate and go live in different places, and how that was completely not okay, in my opinion.
Just opinions, I would hope.
Yeah, hopefully
Hopefully.
everyone's. And that kind of also kicked up the discrimination against Asian Americans with World War II and seeing them as the enemy and spies and all of that. And then it talks about how after World War II, it started increasing. The amount of Asian Americans coming here started increasing, especially with U.S. withdrawal from the Vietnam War, and how a bunch of Indo-Chinese immigrants came to the U.S. for protection and all of that. And it talks about how they also have a problem with language, how their language is also different, and how it talks about the Lau versus Nichols case in 1974. That was another Supreme Court case that basically said they deserve equal opportunity and equal education too, so stop desegregating yet another minority. And so, yeah, that was that one. So yeah, and I think something that like just in my mind, I think a lot of people are learning Spanish, and I think Spanish is like a common second language here in the United States. And so like that growing part of schooling is like getting help, but it talks about how the Asian American students are also growing. And I don't think a lot of the Asian languages are like common second languages for people. And so I think that's going to become an increasing problem within classrooms as it increases.
Yeah, I can definitely see that becoming an issue, because in the school that I was like shadowing for, or teaching, observing, in Blue Valley, they teach from kindergarten. They start Spanish class like as one of their specials or electives or whatever, or extras. They have a Spanish class. But then yeah, it's like there's so many other young kids that like at home speak Vietnamese or Korean or whatever it may be. And yeah, I can definitely see that being an issue in the future.
Yeah. A lot of people look at ELLs and they're like, oh yeah, Spanish speaking students. It's like, no, that's anybody that doesn't speak English.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to add for that one?
Not really.
All right. What is the model minority theory? So the model, like, as I kind of understood it, was they're the good ones. You know what I mean? Like they're the ones that have overcome stuff through hard work, perseverance, industrialness. Like they're the model that everyone else should look to like they're the model minority. You should be like them. They overcome, they work hard. And you guys don't do that.
They went through the process.
What?
So they like went through the process. They did everything that they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and it also talks about how it's like it's misleading and leads to misconceptions and wrong ideas. So, yeah.
You covered it. You got it.
What do you guys like think about it? Do you think like stupid or?
So I think, yeah, I feel like it's kind of like belittling in a way, because it's like everyone has things to go to and to be like, oh, you should be like them in any circumstances, like not okay, or oh, follow that person's way of doing things, because everyone has like a different path that's going to lead you to some place, you know. You don't have to do.
Not everyone's able to go down the same path, or else life would be
Exactly.
perfect.
Everyone has different circumstances, so you just can't say like, oh, do what they did, you know.
Yeah. Silly. I feel like I don't know, I just feel like the United States just feels competition when it's to other religion, race. It's always a competition, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
And
I think it's definitely a white created term. Like no other minority is like, you know what, you're our model, we should be like you. Like it's all about discrimination. It's all about whites being like, you're not good enough, you should be like them. But they're probably going up to an Asian American in the same sense and saying like, oh, you should be like that person. So it's solely just a discriminatory term.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, I agree.
all right, you guys ready for the last one?
Yeah.
Okay. Each discussion member briefly discuss what the most important concept you learned from the top 20 teachers.
One thing that I said is, I think it was chapter 11, 10 or 11 maybe, don't quote me on that. It was like it talked about stupid. It was the whole chapter about, let me find it.
I think I know what you're talking about. I have it bookmarked. That was my favorite part. The reaction.
Keep it in the box.
Yeah, but I was
page 88.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. It's chapter 10. But I thought the 5 causes of stupid, like it talked about the 5 main reasons people will feel stupid. And the first one was being called stupid. The second one was students comparing to others. The third one was just plain confusion. The fourth one was when you can't do something. And the fifth one was just any certain situation, being in a certain class, etc. And I just think it's important to keep those in mind, because you don't want to like be hard on yourself if either you can't do something or you're confused about something. You don't want to automatically go to like, oh, I'm stupid, because then you're not going to try and continue to like get better at that thing, because confusion is a good thing. Like without it, you're not going to learn anything. I don't know, I thought that was an important chapter, because it really told you like, no, you're not stupid, everyone has challenges, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
mine kind of went with that. I thought the reactions to feeling stupid, I thought about like being in school, or still in school, but like being in high school, or being in my observation class, and just seeing how kids react to things, and how it's on page 95. It's like I think it's just 8. Yeah, just like 8 things that like show like that they feel stupid.
mm-hmm.
And I think about like seeing all these, and I think about the kids and how they act, and how a lot of them acted like this. And thinking back on high school, a lot of people acted like this. And when you see someone like saying like, oh, this class is stupid, I don't care, like some people would assume like, oh, they're not going anywhere in life, but they just feel stupid right now. And that how teachers don't always act the way they should to those responses. They just kind of belittle them more, wear them down more than they already are.
I also think one other thing that has definitely stuck with me since we finished reading Top 20 Teachers was just the part of above and below the line. I feel like that was definitely one of the most important things, because even now, since I've read that, in my daily life, I'll like do something like get mad at my boyfriend about something dumb, and then I'm like, okay, that was a little below the line for me. Like, that wasn't one of my best moments,
Yeah,
but that's a good thing to be able, to be able to like realize when it's not your best moment, and then being able to like figure it out and go above the line and be like, hey,
Yeah,
I'm
Own it.
that's what I was going to talk about. Is I love how it didn't take the approach of like there are top 20 teachers and there are bottom 80 teachers. Like those are the two types of teachers and you're either one or the other and that's it. It didn't do that. It was like everybody has a top 20, everybody has a bottom 80. Your job is to recognize when you're in the bottom 80 and use your trampolines, use your methods and get back above the line. So it wasn't like it was teaching you methods to recognize when you are doing something that you shouldn't be doing and to think about how you're doing it and teaching you how to get above it with the trampolines and the other stuff like that. And yeah, I just I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really important to teach those things and to be like, you can be top 20, you just need to know how to get there. And it was,
and if you're feeling bottom 80, like it doesn't mean you are. There's a way to get above that.
yeah, and it was talking about one of the stories that like stuck with me is like when someone went into a counselor's office and he had like just ran in because a meeting went late and he had all this stuff to do, and he like said something and then immediately apologized and he was like, I'm in a bottom 80 moment right now and I need you to come back later. And so I liked that, how it wasn't even like right in that moment switch. It was like, okay, I need a second, I need some time, come back at lunchtime and then I can do it for you. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you
Yeah, I'm fine.
I thought you fell and I was like, oh my god.
No, I was reaching down to grab something. I'm alive.
Yeah.
And kind of relating to the last story, or the last part that you said about the counselor and like he was having a bottom 80 moment, there was also another part, I think it was in the same chapter, of what was it, like basically just not assuming things, like I think it was the bigger picture. I think that's what it was.
Oh yeah.
And there was one story about like there was this girl and she looked like really mad in class and like the teacher was like really confused and kind of went off on her and was like, what's wrong? Like, you used to love this class. And she was like, oh, nothing's wrong. Like, I just need glasses. Like, I'm getting glasses or whatever. And that just goes to show, like, don't assume anything, you need to like find the bigger picture. Don't just, things aren't always what it seems.
People act out for a reason. They're not just.
Yeah.
All right.
Are we good?
Are we good? Anything else?
I'm good.
All right. Okay.
All right. See you guys later.
All right.
Stay healthy.
I think we're gonna have to do this every single week.
Yeah.
Schedule changes pretty erratically, so I do know next week, so I'll send that guy out to you guys. We can do a text group or we can do the other one, but we can set up another time for next week.
Yep. All right.
Bye guys.
Bye, everybody.